Donald Trump is saying, yes, he really meant it when he called President Obama and Hillary Clinton the founders of ISIS. The panel tonight, Scottie Nell Hughes, CNN political commentator and a Donald Trump supporter. Ron Brownstein, CNN political analyst and a senior editor at The Atlantic. Edward Espinoza is executive director of Progress Texas and a Hillary Clinton supporter. And Pete Seat is the former communications director for the Indiana Republican Party, now with Hathaway Strategies. Guys, great to have you here tonight. Let's start with this. Hugh Hewitt, we all know Hugh Hewitt here in the United States, a very influential conservative talk show radio host, and he tried to help Donald Trump out with this whole ISIS thing this morning. I want to play this for our viewers, what Hugh Hewitt asked and what Donald Trump said.
Last night, you said the president was the founder of ISIS. I know what you meant. You meant that he created the vacuum. He lost the peace.
No, I meant he's the founder of ISIS. I do. He's the most valuable player. I give him the most valuable player award. I give her, too, by the way.
But he's not...
So, Scottie, let's just say factually, they did not create ISIS. We know who created ISIS. His name is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Why is he doing this?
Well, and you're right. And John Berman last night did a great job talking back all the way back to 1999 underneath Bill Clinton, the environment that originally started ISIS, and then moving forward, going through the Bush administration and continuing to escalate the instability of the Middle East, and now to what we see as the modern-day ISIS coming out about 2011, 2013. But it does have a lot to say with what we're dealing with right now is because of Barack Obama and this administration. As even CNN reported back in January, that we sat there in Barack Obama's continued alliance with the prime minister at the time, sat there and totally it made this world even worse for them, and you had a whole disenfranchised group of Iraqis that eventually now we're having to deal with as ISIS.
Right.
And they're not the JV.
And Scottie, you are bringing up what is a valid discussion to have in this race. The vacuum or the mistakes that Barack Obama made that may or may not have led to the rise of ISIS. But that is not what Donald Trump is talking about. You know, Michael Hayden actually said something today that struck me. He said that he thinks what Donald Trump is doing is insulting Donald Trump is insulting his audience. Don't you think that his audience is capable of grasping a slightly more complex message of what I just said, that it was mistakes that were made that led to the rise of ISIS? Donald Trump is not saying that.
I think he's trying to, I think your analyst was correct. I think he's trying to put this in as simple terms as possible for a very complicated issue. I don't think these are the right terms to say. But I think these are the terms that he chose to go with, and I think, unfortunately, they don't do the justice of the entire situation that we've been dealing with for the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, does this win voters?
Well, it certainly, I think, helps with his base, you know, in this unpredictable election cycle.
But does he need more help with his base? Didn't he do that in the primary?
Look, I mean, look at his assessment of this election right now. He focuses on the crowds and who comes out to his rallies, how enthusiastic they are. He's not focusing on polls. He's doing exactly what Mitt Romney did in the final days of the 2012 election. We know how that turned out for Mitt Romney. But the one predictable thing about this cycle is whenever things aren't going well for Donald Trump, whether realistically or by our perception, he finds a provocative way to get the spotlight back on him and try and turn the conversation. So he's trying to turn it to Barack Obama's failed policies in the Middle East that have helped encourage ISIS. But I don't know that he's going to have success doing that when he continues to double down on this.
Yeah, I don't know if this spotlight is helping him. I mean, Hillary Clinton is happy to hand this to him. Ron, one thing that has struck me in the last 24 hours is just the difference in Donald Trump's tone. In a print interview as well as on TV, he's had almost like a fatalistic tone for the first time, kind of entertaining the idea that he might not win, saying, I've got a long vacation coming, or if I win, great. If I don't, it's fine too. What do you make of it?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, this is a long race for everybody, and you're going to have your kind of low moments as a candidate, particularly after all of these polls. But can I just go back to the conversation we've been having? Because I think it is very revealing. Unless you believe Donald Trump has absolutely no impulse control, and it's hard to believe he has gotten where he is if he had absolutely no impulse control. Right. I think you have to say by now that there is actually a strategy here, because at every moment, all the way through this race, whether it's the Second Amendment comments or the ISIS comments or his attacks on Judge Curiel, Every time he could have kind of tilted toward a more traditional or centrist persona, he has chosen instead to double down. And, you know, if you're looking at this conventionally, you would say the voters in between where Donald Trump is and where he needs to be primarily are white-collar, white suburbanites who view him as too erratic, unstable, and volatile to be president. So you would try to tone it down. I think the fact that Donald Trump is not toning it down, I think as Pete was maybe alluding to, is indicative that he has a different strategy. He really believes that there is a core of millions of disaffected, culturally conservative voters out there that he can activate with the most polarizing presentation possible by basically channeling the conservative id on all of these issues, even at the price of reinforcing the doubts that have led 60% of college-educated whites to say that he's not qualified for president.
In the end, I guess we're not going to know. We're not going to know until November 8th, I guess, in the end, if that strategy works.
It's hard to say this is all coincidental by this point.
There are no coincidences in politics. That's what I firmly believe. Edward Espinoza, I want to get your take on this. You're a Democratic Party guy, but you know party politics, and I want to get your take on this. These reports now coming that there is this split, this fissure growing between Republican Party leaders and Donald Trump, and basically, it maybe not a threat, but a conversation with Donald Trump now that he either needs to get his act together, or that they are going to move their time, resources, and effort and focus to other Republican races and move away from him. What would that mean?
Well, what it would mean with them being salvaging their Senate seats and their congressional seats for the presidential campaign. But the thing is that we're hearing these conversations all the time now. You heard this when he was meeting with Paul Ryan back at the end of the primaries. You heard it again during the RNC convention. I think we heard it a week or two ago, and now we're hearing it again. Donald Trump has no ability to stay on a disciplined message, nor does show any sort of allegiance to the party or the people around him. They can have this conversation today. They're going to have it again next week. Sooner or later, Republican leaders have to decide, are they going to fish or cut bait? And even if they do decide to split from the Republican ticket, is it enough? Is it enough to say your down-ticket Republicans are different than your top-of-the-ticket Republicans? Ultimately,
well, they're polling better than it. A lot of them in tough races are polling better than Donald Trump right now. I just think at some point, like, isn't too late? And Ron, this is where I want to get you, because you've actually been researching this. Win or lose, you've been looking into the possible fallout of what this fissure means kind of historically, that there's a candidate that is creating so much dissension within his own party.
Right. First point, the cut bait to some extent has already happened, because all of these Senate Republicans, I think, are clearly in a position where they are going to try to turn out voters who indicate that they will vote Republican down ballot to vote against Donald Trump at the top. Whether you're Kelly Ayotte or Pat Toomey or Ron Johnson or Mark Kirk, you are going to be totally willing to turn out anti-Trump voters, and they've all indicated that. So to some extent, the party has already said, good luck, buddy, you're on your own. We're going to turn out our voters. But yes, I mean, I think if you go back historically, I think what we're seeing now is the largest level of defection by elected officials within the Republican Party over a general election nominee since Barry Goldwater. And by most measures, I think we are past what we saw under Barry Goldwater in 1964. Dwight Eisenhower, for example, was privately dubious of Goldwater, but he endorsed him publicly and cut ads for him. Richard Nixon campaigned for him. We're not seeing that kind of cohesion from former Republican national figures. Same kind of thing with McGovern as a Democrat in 1972, when you had big party dissent. In each case, Kate, it signaled a lasting change in the balance of power in the party. Goldwater signaled the rise of the Sun Belt against the Eastern establishment. McGovern, the kind of coalition of the ascendant against blue-collar and the South. And you could see the same thing with Trump, a more blue-collar party over time that has lasting retreat in white-collar suburban America as well as in minority communities. And it would not be win or lose. I mean, the wrenching struggle over Donald Trump that you're watching play out in the Republican Party is not going to end in November.
The flip side of that is a lot of Republicans, Scotty, and you'll say this, I want your quick comment on this, a lot of Republicans who feel like they haven't been heard for so many cycles, they'll say, fine.
That's exactly it, Kate. It's the silent majority that has been literally bullied down to be quiet for the last 6 years, 7 years. It's the same movement that birthed the Tea Party, conservatives, even libertarians are now getting the voice. And these Republicans cannot ignore the 10, 12, 15,000 rallies that are larger now than they were even during the primary season that are happening across the country in all of these states. So these senators that say that they're running away from them, even in New Hampshire, even in Maine, even in Pennsylvania, you're still seeing rallies of 15, 20,000 120,000 people that are far more than Mitt Romney ever turned out. Yeah. And these senators risk a large in disenfranchisement.
Do support and rallies? Does it mean votes at the polls? That's a big question. Okay, guys, stand by with me. We've got a lot more, including this. An electronic Watergate. Why a top Democrat says that just happened to her party, and what the impact will be on the 2016 race. The panel is back.
This is an electronic Watergate. This is an electronic Watergate. This is a break-in. The Russians broke in. Who did they give the information to? I don't know. Who dumped it? I don't know. But I do know that this is a Watergate-like electronic break-in.
That is the top Democrat in the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, there, comparing the Democratic Party email hacking to the greatest scandal in American politics in the past century. So what does that mean for Hillary Clinton? What does it mean for this race? The panel is back. We had some technical gremlins, but look, everyone is back. Edward, let me start with you. This New York Times report saying that it's much bigger than they thought. More than 100 private email addresses from officials and groups. I mean, it already brought down the head of the Democratic Party. How bad is this going to get?
Well, first of all, I would say that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was brought down for a number of reasons. I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But as far as the rest of the emails go, look, this is a big problem. And one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough is what are the source of the problems? Where did this come from? We talk about the Russians. Maybe it came from somewhere else. But the fact that the Democratic Party emails were hacked alludes to there were probably other committees' emails that were hacked, too. And finding the source of these is a big deal. Maybe more important than finding out what's in some of these emails, because when we see what's in the content of the emails, look, it's really not that sensational. There were a couple of ill-advised emails that were sent, but overall, most of it was the normal mundane stuff that we all email each other throughout the day anyway.
Look, there's clear security issues that this raises, but there are real political issues that this raises as well. I mean, Ron Brownstein, let me explain for our viewers what the October surprise means. The October surprise is a kind of deliberate news event that is created and timed deliberately to do just that, happen in October and change the course of a presidential race. It has happened. Is this going to be the October surprise, Ron?
I don't know. I mean, look, I think that the biggest point is that all indications are this was directed by a foreign intelligence service. It is in essence an act of aggression against the American political system from Russia, and I think that is a big deal no matter who is elected president. And I think that is the overwhelming issue here. To me, I mean, the key issue in this race, Donald Trump can make as strong a case as he wants against Hillary Clinton, but she is ahead at a moment when most voters say that they don't trust her, they don't have a favorable view of her, and they don't view her as an agent of change. This campaign, more than anything else, has become a referendum on whether you believe Donald Trump is fit to be president. Right now, 60% of people consistently in polls say he's not qualified to be president. Almost 60% say they consider him racially biased against minorities and against women. Until he changes that, it's just hard to see what the surprise will be, particularly among these white-collar suburban voters who are the barrier between where he is in the low 40s and where he needs to get to win.
And to that point, also showing in the polls, the majority of people, Scotty, want to see Donald Trump's tax returns. Hillary Clinton clearly sees that in the polls. That's why she's playing this game, saying, I'll show you mine now you show me yours. I mean, do you have to concede it's a good strategy? Because he's not going to.
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy for the Democrats, but that's all about the content. And I want to play the game with them. Ask me what question you want to find out about Donald Trump besides what his net worth is, and I'll show it to you in the FEC reports, because that's all that you really care about. The only people right now asking for his tax forms are those that actually want to use it against him. The people who actually support him know that there's nothing in there they're going to show.
People want to see it.
Well, they're not the ones that are supporting Mr. Trump. That's the key in all of this. But, I want to go back real quick to the content of those emails. To sit there and say they're mundane is wrong. Those content of those emails showed right now, they showed a high bias, a lot of hate that exists in the Democratic Party, some press collaboration. There's a lot of things, and it's obviously the content has the Democrats worried. Obviously, if you've got Nancy Pelosi out there saying this is a Watergate, they're worried about what else could come out, which makes you wonder what else are in these emails.
They sure are, Pete. Should they be?
Should they matter? Absolutely. I mean, to your point earlier, Hillary Clinton has a lot of trustworthy problems, and that's why she's bringing up the tax return issue. Although, quite frankly, I think it's a red herring, and we're not going to find anything in Hillary Clinton's tax returns if they come out tomorrow or a couple days from now. The last speech she gave, the last paid speech she gave was in March 2015. There's not going to be anything there. This is all about Donald Trump.
It's all about perception. Perception is reality in politics, folks. Great to see you guys. Thank you.